What, when, who? We have to answer these three main questions orbiting Luffy's character and his final fight in the series, since it's happening this decade, if of course we're assuming that Oda is serious about ending the series quote-unquote soon. We are in the final saga for sure, but just at the very beginning of the final saga. Just considering how many years it took to get to the current Egghead Island from Fishman Island, I would argue comfortably that it's still a long road ahead to the ultimate finish line. And on this long road, Luffy's power and his skills are only going to exponentially rise. If you thought it was scary before, during the Yonko saga or the previous sagas, then you have no idea just how terrifying his upcoming exponential rise in power is going to be. He is already a freak, but he is going to be even more of a freak. But there's other freaks that exist in the world of One Piece, and the final freak is going to push Luffy to levels One Piece fans never thought possible when we first started our journeys reading and watching the series. So let's break this down on a broad scale, tackling these three looming questions about Luffy and his final fight.
Nani?
Number one, the what. What will Luffy be like come the final fight of the series? And now let's go alphabetically. A, his design. I don't think that Luffy's design will make any major changes outside of the arc to arc drip changes. One thing I can see happening though is him losing one of his eyes and needing an eye patch before or even during the final fight of the series. 16 years ago, Oda said that one of the final scenes will have a pirate with an eye patch. And even though that was 16 years ago, I'm very confident that Oda's going to maintain that come like the final few sections of the series. And a popular theory is that it's going to be Luffy that's going to need that eye patch because during one of these major fights in the future, if not the final fight in the future, he lost an eye. B, Luffy's character. Now, I do not believe that Luffy's persona will change since it's one of the most appealing things about his character. A core motif of the One Piece series is not changing who you are in spite of drawing realities and facing monumentous hurdles. In order to achieve your dream, you have to be steadfast in your convictions, larger than life itself, but also enjoy and embrace the journey, the process of attaining your dreams and goals. Your persona is part of that, and Luffy isn't, I think, pulling any Eren Yeagers or Ken Kanekis anytime soon. He will, of course, naturally grow, but still be his childlike self. And in certain ways, like in leadership, as a captain, as an emperor, actually leading the grand fleet, or him having other people go to his territories to protect them, he, I think, will grow as a leader over the course of the series in those ways, and he'll also gain a better understanding of the world situation, the world history. The closer we get to the One Piece, the more we find out about the Void Century and the stranglehold the world government has on the world itself. Luffy at some point in the future will get wrapped up into Dragon's plans at some point and enter the Holy Land. And currently, as of chapter 1093, he is fighting on Egghead Island against Kizaru, and we know that Jay Garcia Saturn, one of the 5 elders, is nearby. Someone that has a completely opposite moral compass, if at all a moral compass, compared to someone like Luffy. So I'd argue things are gonna get pretty messy and pretty chaotic soon. Finally, the last of the section, C, power-wise, Luffy, I think, come the final fight of the series, will be up there in at least the top 3 strongest characters in the series, probably of all time. That even includes people from Joy Boy's era and Roger's era. Luffy's physicality is only going to improve over the course of time, and he will have mastery over all of his hakis, with maybe the exception of the voice of all things, if that is haki related. You can argue that even right now, he is a master of both observation and armor haki, given the events of Whole Cake Island and Wano Country, and those abilities would have improved drastically come the final fight of the series. However, Conqueror's haki might only be fully mastered during the final fight, since it is the most rare, but also the most unclear of what you can and cannot do with Conqueror's haki. What Shanks did to Green Bull was a huge stepping stone for that haki, and according to Oda, Luffy's affinity for haki is Conqueror's Haki. So once again, he may not have Conqueror's Haki mastery up until in the middle of the final fight of the series. Furthermore, his Devil Fruit is going to be even trickier since Gear 5 has just too many. At this point in time, it just has too many possibilities for what it can do in the future. Again, latest chapter One Piece, 1093. You notice how Luffy is just hovering in the sky after he threw Kizaru, and we saw something similar in episode 1076 after he beat Kaido. There are both major things and minor things that have caught my eye that Luffy has been doing with Gear 5, and in the future, come the final five of the series, these things are going to be fully fleshed out. And what exactly these possibilities are, these aspects, these...
Not yet.
It requires its own individual video on what Luffy could do power-wise on the potential possibilities of Gear 5 come the final fight of the series. So, of course, in the future, another video, another day. Right now, all I can do is just reiterate what I said at the beginning of the video, where Luffy's growth rate is going to be absolutely absurd in this final saga of the story. Even scarier during the Yonko saga, where arguably Luffy got the most exponential increases in power, because the Gear 5 ability alone, what we've seen so far, I'd argue, is just the tip of the iceberg.
いつの日かその数百年分の歴史この世界に戦いを挑む者が現れる
When in the story will Luffy's final fight be? At the end of the story. But obviously, we have to dive deeper into that because there is an extreme junction, fork in the road that we have to address that's going to determine when exactly the final fight of the story will be. This unavoidable fork in the road is the final war. And to be clear here, when I say the final war, I mean the war that Whitebeard talked about when he spoke before he passed away. The war that the world government feared happening.
There's two options.
Will the final war be before we find the One Piece treasure, or will the final war be after we find the One Piece treasure and Luffy is already king of the pirates? This is something we have talked about before. Whether it was on streams or in videos, we have discussed this because it's very, very important. If the final war in the series is after we find the One Piece, then the world government become the prima villains of the series. Once the Strats overcome them, the world government and company, then we wrap up any plot points that have left. Then we get to the final part of Luffy's dream, which I've theorized for a while now is going to be a global party across the entire world of One Piece. And that's it. The story is over, encased in an amazing package up there with the Odyssey.
Lovely.
However, if the final war against the WG, the world government, is before we find the One Piece treasure, then it's way more likely that the final fight for Luffy is going to be pirate related, since it's a treasure relative to pirates first and foremost. You can still have world government involvement in the final battle, even in this situation, but they're likely to play a minor role compared to the pirates that are actively seeking the treasure to try and achieve their dreams. And I'll explain that in greater detail later on in the video, since it can involve a certain pirate. Now, there are strong cases for both sides in a general sense. First, for the final war happening after the treasure is found, clearly it's Whitebeard's comments. Before Whitebeard dies, he makes the claim that when it's found, then there'll be a final war that will change the world forever. Now, there are people that have claimed that the translation is somewhat inaccurate, and it's not clear if it's going to be happening after it's found per se, but rather it does involve the treasure itself, the One Piece. Other folks have said that's kind of cap, and it is after the treasure is found. However, the second case, when it comes to the final war happening before we find the One Piece, on this camp, you have Oda's very own comments that he stated in an interview with the author of Detective Conan. Oda specifically states, and I quote, "I've always pictured what the final chapter of One Piece would be like. Though from time to time, the situation surrounding it changes. It'll still be over whenever the One Piece is found in the series." Ha ha.
Yeah.
Now, I don't think that Oda necessarily means that when it's found, the story is immediately done, we get the fin in the corner, that's it, wrap it all up. I don't think so. But how can there be a full-fledged final war after the treasure is found and the series is basically done once it's found? How can that be?
I have no idea.
It does get, obviously, a little bit tricky, but it does all depend on the, quote, situation, end quote, that Oda is going to make surrounding the One Piece treasure when it's finally revealed and discovered. Again, we know that after he becomes King of the Pirates, there's going to be the final section of his dream achieved, and then we can end the story.
お前が黒ひげ
And now we finally get into the who. Who is Luffy's final fight going to be against? Now, given everything I've said so far, I think there are only 3 people that are worthy of being Luffy's final opponent in the story. Number 1 is going to be the sad girl or the sad guy, Emu, being, of course, the linchpin of the world government, that which sits on the empty throne, will conduct great cleansings to maintain the corruption and current status quo of the world, the king of the world, Emu. Damn near everything that Luffy stands for is contradicted by Emu in the world government, and the current direction of the world is very, very likely built on a lie ever since the Void Century ended. People don't have the means to feed themselves and suffer greatly at the hands of the celestial dragons. And since we found out recently, after the actions of a few good men, countries were in open revolt, open rebellion against the world government, and right now, Dragon has his soldiers targeting cargo supplies of the celestial dragons, so they don't have the usual fancy food that they're accustomed to. So in this situation, the final war, Luffy would team up with the Rev, Sabo, Dragon, Ivankov, and company to take down the current establishment, which also stands in his way of the final section of his dream after he's Pirate King, which again I theorize is gonna be that global party, or potentially even still stand in his way, but he hasn't found the One Piece treasure just yet, and they're still the final villains of the series. But again, based on Whitebeard's words, it's likely the former, where it's gonna be he's king of the pirates and he's gonna fight against Emu, the king of the world. The second individual that is worthy of being the final fight for Luffy in the One Piece series is, of course, Mr. All Day, Every Day, 24/7, 365, ha 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 ha, Team Blackbeard. Obviously, since Jaya, Blackbeard and Luffy have had their eyes on each other. He is the reason why Ace was on the chopping block in the first place, and Luffy and Blackbeard have already fought each other once before in Impel Down. In many ways, he is just like Luffy, but a twisted version of Luffy. He's a believer in dreams and very ambitious. He's sloppy, very goofy, with tendencies that a lot of times cause him more trouble than they're worth. Like, for example, against Law, where he took a major blow by Law, because again, the man is very sloppy, and also at the same time pretty arrogant, and he underestimates his opponents too much, lets his guard down too much. However, there is of course that inner Ric Flair, that inner Scar from the Lion King, slimy, underhanded, a traitor. If Luffy is in House Gryffindor, then clearly Blackbeard is in House Slytherin, and the Sorting Hat doesn't even have to touch his skull. Just being in his area, he knows Slytherin. Boom, this guy, no. Absolutely, he's too foul. And part of that foulness is not valuing his crewmates the same way Luffy values his crewmates. For example, he was willing to let Katarina and Vasco Shot die in chapter 1059. Luffy would never, of course he would never. But most of all, when it comes to Blackbeard, are his supposed, theoretical at this point in time, connections with Rox D. Sebek. As Sengoku stated in the Ultimate chapter, the man who wanted to be the king of the world, Rox D. Sebek, Gold D. Rogers' first and perhaps greatest foe. Blackbeard likely inherited the will of Rox D. Sebek, and we've seen recently he's making moves. He's trying to have his island, Pirate Island, be a country certified under the world government. People right now have forgotten, but not me, Blackbeard is scheming something massive. And recently we found out time and time again that he has been attempting to gain as many hostages as he possibly can. Right now, he has Garp Chujo because of Garp's mission to save Kobe. We know he has Pudding, and there's a chance that Perona also gets captured too, since she's already on Full Lead Island. So Oda clearly setting up tension and future conflict between the Straw Hat Pirates and the Blackbeard Pirates. That for sure is happening in the future. And if it is gonna be the final fight for Luffy in the story against Blackbeard, then it's gonna be, of course, for the One Piece treasure itself. That is the prima prize. Even his attempts of getting his country into the world government affiliated nations, even that is also going to be a play to try and get the One Piece treasure, ultimately speaking. So if there was a final war, it could be not Emu, but Blackbeard being the front runner and trying to claim the One Piece with the gains he has made via all of his scheming. The third and final option for the final fight for the One Piece treasure is the red hair wonder, the God King, Shanks. If you were in a cave, your head was stuck in the sand like an ostrich, if you don't know, now you know. Oda has been making clear attempts to push the entertainment and fun aspects of the series into the forefront. Gear 5 is synonymous with this very idea. And once again, in the interview with the author of Detective Conan, you find this everywhere. Fun this, fun that. And when asked about his thoughts on the final arc / saga of the story, what did Oda say? And I quote, "I really just want to have fun and joke around. Even if some people believe that way of thinking is not really interesting for such a series, it's still a form of entertainment on its own. I still think it'll be interesting to discuss it, considering it's a work that has become a pretty big deal. Of course, the franchise itself, One Piece, duh. I'm going to have fun. Fun. All right. Okay, Oda. So, with all that being said, who is to say that the last fight Luffy is going to have in the story is going to be a serious life and death battle, the fate of the universe on the line, and you have no Andre Iguodala? Oda's intentions are clear, and they're going to be even more apparent as the story continues the marathon to the finish line. And waiting right before the finish line could be the man that Luffy promised in chapter 1 of the series that he would ultimately beat to prove that his crew was better and be king of the pirates, Red Hair Shanks and his crew. With recent moments like Shanks suppressing an admiral from thousands of kilometers away, literally the greatest hockey feat we have ever seen in the One Piece series by far, not even close. And then, of course, obviously, handling Kid and his crew with a single swipe. It is very clear, that Shanks is built different. When you stack on top of that, chapter 1001, Kaido's claims of a scant few men that can fight against him, and Shanks being the only man alive in these scant few men, plus double tapping Kaido's comments about how hockey can transcend all. And it is Shanks so far who stands on top of the world as the prima hockey practitioner. And on top of that, in the road to Laugh Tale, understanding that even the Gorosei have admitted that if Shanks makes the move, if he is enraged, we can't stop him. We just can't do it. And relative to Luffy, even though he has a 3 billion berry bounty, the Nika has been revealed, and he's just going out of his mind Looney Tunes status. Not yet. According to Shanks, the time is not yet. That time could literally be the end of the series itself. Fighting for the One Piece treasure, fulfilling the promise that was made in chapter 1, the most entertaining battle between the best pirate crews. And those, my friends, are the 3 major people I can see being Luffy's final fight come the end of the series of One Piece. So that's it. That is my take on Luffy's final fight in One Piece. We'll see in the next 3 or 4 or like 5+ years if I'm actually right or not. If I'm off base, it's gonna be Garling or it's gonna be NL. Hey, maybe it's gonna be Buggy, gonna actually generally be the final fight of the series. We'll have to wait and see. I will admit this, I would much rather Luffy's final fight be against either Blackbeard or Shanks than Emu. Even though all 3 of them are great options, One Piece as a series is a series about pirates. It is pirates who matter first and foremost in this world, in this era. Goldie Roger, folks, obviously. We are in the great age of pirates. The world government and the Marines are more so just the reactionary establishment force of the world itself. And I think for the story itself, the final fight to attain the greatest treasure in the world is a better final fight than the typical save the world, save the universe shtick we've seen before time and time and time again. By the way, before I go, I do plan on doing a video similar to this video for both Zoro and Sanji, so let me know your stance on this video with a comment in the comment section down below. If you enjoy this video, then make sure to smash the like button, subscribe to the channel, double tap subscribe to join the notification squad, and ladies and gentlemen, I'm gonna catch you cats on the flip side.
See you. Bye bye.